really attack the problem as an engineer. Like, I'm going to do AI assisted development. What are the actual engineering steps I have to go through to make that work the way I want it to work? And how do I evaluate, okay, I did this prompt, but the AI agent did this. How can I alter that? Or what kind of framing can I give it to make it behave the way I want it to behave? And it's super hard work. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of dedication. But really attack it as an engineer that is focused on the problem. I want to build my software with AI agents, but it's still going to be my software.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Futureproof. I'm Prakash Chandran, the CEO of Xano. Today, I'm joined by Aleksander Hakestad, the CTO and co-founder of Apart Tech, a company focused on building software for operational excellence. Aleksander is one of the most forward-thinking technology leaders I know. He was an early believer in platforms like Xano back when it wasn't obvious that we'd scale to enterprise grade. As head of technology at Heimstaden, he led one of Europe's largest real estate companies through a major digital transformation, delivering software 10x faster and saving millions by rethinking how applications were built. Now at Apart Tech, Aleksander is continuing that mission, building AI-native systems that help companies automate operations and move faster. He was experimenting with AI coding agents long before it was mainstream, and his perspective on how engineering teams should be built in 2025 and beyond is beyond one of the most progressive that I've seen. Today, we'll explore how he thinks about software development in the age of AI, from agents to team design to evaluating new technology bets, and what leaders can learn from his approach to building for the future. Aleksander, I'm so happy to have you here because not only do I consider you an impressive colleague that I've had the luxury to work with, but you're also a friend, so I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. What an intro. Jeez.
Yeah.
Like that's, it's not good for a Norwegian to hear that kind of praise. How about we just, instead of doing this, how about we just play some Doom or something? And then
That's right. I would absolutely love that. That's great. But yeah, you were the one that kind of like built that illustrious and impressive career. I'm just kind of reporting on the news. But yeah, I think I read a little bit about your background. But I think it might be worthwhile for the audience to hear just a little bit about how you got your start in technology, kind of your experience leading up to Heimstaden, and just kind of like your unique approach to building software and technology, even before the age of AI.
Absolutely. So I got started pretty early. I got started around, I think I was 7 when I first got like a really, really old computer, IBM 286.
Nice.
And so that kind of opened my whole world up. Thought it was one of the most fascinating things I've ever seen. And then I managed to acquire, for some reason, I got my hands on a Commodore, which kind of opened my world to programming. Because back then you could sort of send. I'm gonna sound like I'm freaking 60 years old, but back then you could send programs through this magazine, and other people could like request your program in the magazine, and you sort of sent for programs back and forth. And I managed, like, it was simple stuff back then. It was like drawing circles and stuff, and small little games here and there. But it kind of got me hooked on the bug, for sure. And then I was a part of building a gaming website when I was in my teenage years or early teens, which we also sold. So that kind of, made me think like, well, what is this actually? Like, is this something that we can do as people? It's just like work with the internet. It's awesome. And then after that, it was more or less, it's hard kind of thinking back on your career and what you've done as anything other than kind of a comedy of errors, if you get what I mean. Because you're Definitely. Just doing, you're just moving from place to place, trying to do the best you can do and trying to be the best you can be. And you have passion, you have drive, you want to learn everything about everything. And that kind of just leads to your career being what it is. I would say the most pivotal part of my career was, however, I was the IT director of a bank in the Nordics here called Santander, which is like a global bank. But that made me realize, the career trajectory upwards is not as important to me as the depth of knowledge. So, it's one of the biggest learnings I've ever gotten is, being at the sort of the top of the career and then realizing this is not what you want at all. This is actually the opposite of what you want. And then you start digging yourself down again into the career ladder where you actually belong and where you can work with technology and build stuff. So that's kind of the short story of it all. Is
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a really unique insight. I don't actually think we've talked about this before, like you climbing the corporate ladder, and people can go look you up on LinkedIn and they can kind of see the career path.
Yeah.
But reaching a certain level, a career rung where you're, I'm sure, being paid a lot of money, you're very well
Sure.
respected, but having then the insight that you don't get to have that depth of knowledge and the tactical hands-on piece that made you fall in love with the technology to begin with. And I'm wondering, like, when you realized that within that organization, what did that mean for you? And, what did you do kind of in that moment?
So basically, it was like pulling the handbrake on a speeding train or speeding subway, because in that kind of line of work, you're constantly moving around, you're constantly traveling, you're constantly visiting teams, constantly meeting people. It's super hectic being in that type of position, and there's always more to do than what you can get around to doing. And so, I think it came to me like on a business trip somewhere, where I just sat down and sort of looked out the window and is this what you really want? I haven't touched a computer in how many days? I haven't actually done something in how many days? I miss it really much, a lot. I miss it a lot. It's just one of those epiphanies that you have suddenly, that things aren't going the way you want them to go.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're at that point, you start, when you've had that realization, you do a little bit of introspection and you figure out like what actually matters to you. What do you like doing? Where did your original passion come from? And for me, it's always been sitting in front of the computer and building stuff. So it's as easy as that. And I think we, as human beings, we spend way too much time at work. So you better make it worthwhile when you're there, right? So do what you love.
I think that there is a really interesting theme that I know will kind of unfold in this conversation around like your self-reflection as a technology leader and how kind of counter you have operated in terms of like the archetype that you normally see with normal CTOs and head of technologies, et cetera. The context in which I met you was obviously with Xano, and you were tinkering around and experimenting with it. And I actually didn't realize like how high up at Heimstaden you were, because frankly, you just struck me as just like an engineer there that was just building. And which I think is awesome. And I think that this just goes to like, especially in today's world, the need to like have your hands, or like roll up your sleeve and have your hands in the technology, because that's the only way you're going to understand, kind of where the puck is moving. But
I also think like from a management perspective, if you're actually managing people, I really moved away from, when I was going up the corporate ladder, what you were taught was sort of, as a leader and as a manager, you're supposed to be, giving people giving the tools to people for them to be their best, showing direction, showing, managing their priorities and so on and so on. But I also, I think people forgot something along the way. And that is like one of the most important roles as a leader is also to evaluate quality. And how can you actually evaluate quality if you are the furthest away from the field of expertise?
Mm-hmm.
And so I've kind of also made it a point for myself to always stay curious, to always learn, never rely on best things I've learned before. Throw away things that you thought were good before. All of those stuff. I'm very aware of that all the time, pretty much.
Yeah, that's a really unique insight. And yeah, I want to talk about how that kind of has manifested currently. But just going back to Heimstaden in this context, when I met you, what was interesting is you were already thinking in this like counter way, like you kind of were optimizing for speed and doing things differently then. Maybe talk a little bit about your responsibilities at Heimstaden, what you were
Sure.
tasked with, and why you kind of took this kind of novel approach.
Sure. So we were tasked with building a property management software, a software to manage, thereabouts 150,000 apartments across 10 countries. And my job was basically to architect that and see it through. What do we need to actually build that, and how do we build the architecture around it, and so on and so on. And I think I mentioned also what team do we need to put in place. And we had a few stabs at it, where again this conventional wisdom comes in, and you recruit the best of the best, you put the best of the best plan in works, you rely on the current best practices. And in the beginning, we were just not seeing the results that we wanted to see. It was just not moving fast enough. It was costing too much.
Yeah.
I don't think the team culture or team spirit was that good in that period of time. And I've also talked about like building software in a multicultural, international environment is extremely hard, because you have not only do you need to understand the very detailed technical requirements of such a platform, but you have to communicate it across multiple different cultures and languages. And people listening to this and viewing this, they probably notice right away that I'm Norwegian, just due to my accent and the words that I choose when I speak English. So I have my Norwegian way of speaking English. Polish people have Polish way of speaking English. So the opportunity for miscommunication is just extreme. So I think one thing kind of led to another, and the initial thought was that there's got to be something else. If we are following the book, if we are doing everything by the book, and this is the result, then there's something wrong with the book, not with the approach. So we threw away the book and we started exploring alternatives. We came across no code and low code as an alternative, and then we experimented for quite a while, probably the better part of half a year, before we decided to kind of let's push this button, let's make a real go for it, and let's not do it sort of halfway. Let's really do it the way it's supposed to be done.
So I want to talk a little bit about throwing away the book and reevaluating how things are done, because I think that's more relevant today than ever.
Yeah.
But just at the time, did you have a framework or a hypothesis around things that you clearly, you were following all of the best practices, you had a large engineering team. What are some of the things that you optimized for back then that other leaders can potentially learn from?
It's going to sound a little bit weird maybe, but I think, and it's also a little bit of a hard metric to optimize for, but I think communication and understanding is of the utmost importance in any engineering work. I usually say that the hardest part of engineering is to understand the problem that you're fixing and really understand it. And what I saw in these tools at a very early stage is that the communication barrier, even from sort of business person to technologists, but also across countries, across multiple cultures. Those barriers started to be torn down, and people started communicating in a completely different way, which I thought was just, I've pretty much never seen anything like that in my career. So I knew that there was something special there. And then from that point, it was a job of connecting the dot between the old and the new. So what do we bring with us from the old world into the new world? And what do we leave by the wayside, sort of? What do we leave on the graveyard? And that we were very meticulous about that. So we went sort of, okay, do we do code reviews? Do we do these and these, checks on these and these processes? How do we do testing? How do we do, all of these things? We were pretty meticulous about, and then we landed on an approach that I think worked pretty well. We were early, for sure, and we felt some of that. But I think I'd much rather be early than late on any type of topic like this.
Yeah, and I think that it's just worth noting in this journey where you're kind of like counter to a lot of the traditional way of doing things, it's not always easy for your team to just follow your lead.
No.
You're introducing new tools, new processes, maybe kind of skipping over processes that people are used to. Talk a little bit about that change, and because I want to roll it up into what you're doing today with AI.
Sure. So I think I've met two people in my time that has given me a lot of guidance on what I refer to as strategic execution. And that's one guy is called Juan Calvera. He was a IT director in Santander. And the other one is Rodin, who I'm actually still working with in a part. And the thing about making a change like this is that you can't go halfway into it, because the second you don't display anything other than utter belief in what you're doing is the second the strategy starts showing holes and starts showing weakness. And I think for people to actually join your journey and believe in you, you gotta believe in what you're doing yourself, and you can't believe sort of halfway. You gotta jump into it with both legs. And there will also be detractors on that journey, for sure. Even if you believe however hard you want to believe in what you're doing, there will be detractors on the way for whatever reasons. And you gotta honestly give people a shot to join the bandwagon. Some people are quick, some people are more meticulous and slow to join the bandwagon. You gotta give people an opportunity to succeed on your new journey. But you also gotta realize that you're a business, and this is the way you're moving on. And at some point in time, you gotta set put your foot down and say, this is happening. You either join or you can find something else to do. So, but this is what I think a lot of business leaders actually fail on, is the strategic execution part, where you have to move from words to actually painfully executing what you're talking about. But in the end, I think even the detractors, they respect you more for actually going for it, instead of sort of landing on a halfway, nobody's happy about anything. I would much rather some people be mad at me and we're doing something special, or than everyone's being kind of happy with you. So
yeah.
But it's hard. A lot of people will come at you from all types of angles when you try to do something new, and especially in a corporate environment where doing something new is almost like the organization itself is trying to introduce antibiotics to get rid of you. Because everyone is sort of, don't rock the boat, try not to do anything else. Like don't stick out. All of that stuff starts hitting you if you're actually doing something worthwhile. And so I think you got to stick with it and be tough for a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was interesting just kind of witnessing you go through that kind of the hate mail that you would get from some of the engineers and from the rest of the organization. Obviously, I think it rolled into, you kind of showing success and how fast you could build this new way, and really rethinking and maybe making them reframe how applications are developed. In your new role at Apart, you kind of bring that mentality with you, and you are starting it in a time where AI has maybe completely reframed again how software should be built. So maybe talk a little bit about Apart, its purpose, and also through this lens of how you build software or a new way to develop, how AI plays a role there.
Yeah. So first of all, in Apart, we're building the best property management software in the world. We are still in build mode, so we're still building out our software. But part of it is what you're building, and part of it is how you're building it.
Mm-hmm.
And a big part of Apart, that was a part of it from very early days, is this notion of AI assisted development, and combined with everything that we learned in terms of no code development, and like where do you leave one and go with the other, and how do you also combine them for the best of both worlds. And I think we realized like AI assisted development is actually, in my opinion, a lot harder than just regular development. Harder from an engineering standpoint, harder from a problem solving standpoint, harder just on a regular day-to-day working rhythm standpoint. There's tons of challenges with it that you don't necessarily see by just going with the marketing jargon, like all of the vibe coding lingo and all of that. And so I would say we spent maybe 4 to 5 months in R&D just to get it right. But still, it was something that, we saw a kernel of something that could be amazing if we actually managed to pull it off. So that kind of gave us the drive to pursue it, even if it took us as long as it did. So we're 4 or 5 people now on our permanent team. And how I view it now is sort of, we've completely changed our way of viewing employees in general. Like it would not be a problem for us now to hire the best of the best and scale that person indefinitely with agentic coding, and our stack with which also relies heavy on no code and Sano, of course. Still, the main hurdle for us was to agentic coding. How do you actually control the quality? How do you evaluate the quality of their output? And how can you control that through all of the steps that an agent actually does? So it came down to just nitty-gritty analysis, looking at how the agents behaved in different when prompting them different, looking at the quality of the output. And I would say, like, at the end of our journey, where we are, we're not at the end of our journey, but where we are now, I would say the throughput of one employee. I mean, one employee does the work of maybe 15, 20 people. In the past, when I apply my previous metrics of productivity, So it's absolutely insane what you can do with this combination of both, not losing the visual aspects of what that no code can give you, but also applying agentic or AI assisted development to the extent that we are. One, just before I leave it, we did a test just a couple of weeks ago where we, from GitHub issue to PR to 3 rounds of improvements of a PR, did a fully automated process from end to end.
Wow.
So basically, the issue came in, the issue was analyzed, it figured out what backend APIs in Sano are being used, it figured out is the problem within that space, or is the problem within front-end code? And then it came up with an implementation plan with file names and file line or line in files and lines in files and all of that, and also what specific improvements that we need to do. That triggered another agent, and that did the development in the background. That the agent delivered a pull request. That pull request was reviewed, and out of that review came a few suggestions. And another agent improved those suggestions, and it did that in a round of 3 times. And then I get it on my table at the very end. So that's pretty insane.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I have so many follow-up questions.
Yeah.
Let's start with the people question.
Sure.
I remember back in the days at Heimstaden, I think you and Anders came up with the term product builder.
Yep.
And the product builder was maybe a non-developer type with business owner or business unit expertise, like an SME,
Yep.
who could participate in the building. And for that time, I think enabling them to build was the right move.
Sure.
What it sounds like now is your philosophy, because you have 4 to 5 people full-time, is to hire the most talented engineers so you can leverage them the most with AI and stay away from those product builders. Is that an accurate read?
Yeah, more or less. I still think you need a little bit of both, because it's very easy to sort of, when you hire people, it's very easy to go out there and try to hire yourself, at least when you like yourself as much as I do.
You're pretty cool guy, so I understand
it. So it's a very sort of quick trap to fall into. But I think any team needs a mix of different backgrounds and different areas to succeed. What I do think about more now than before is your ability as an expert to convey your expertise or to communicate your expertise to someone else or to an agent. Because I think that is a skill for the future for sure, is to be able to know your field of expertise to that degree that you can actually communicate easily around it. That is for sure a skill of the future. So I think about that a lot. And to be honest as well, there's many drawbacks in this. It's since I believe, like, I'm passionate about technology through and through, I worry about the youngsters coming up in the game, and like them getting the foot in the door. Who's going to take care of that when entry level jobs are kind of almost disappearing as we speak? So one of the side effects of this that I hope is not going to happen is us sitting here in 20 years with nobody to take over. Because I do think AI can do a lot of stuff, but I think human expertise is still, like, real dedicated human expertise is still going to be around for a while, a long time.
Yeah. The second thing I want to talk about a little bit is, the nature of AI assisted development.
Yeah.
If a part is really creating the best property management software in the world. That's one piece. That's a mission you're on to accomplish
Sure.
as an organization. But a lot of what we've talked about is the how you build it. And you've been really thoughtful and intentional about the systems that you've put in place. How, like, especially for other leaders that are thinking about building in this new way or want to build in this new way where it's AI assisted, how did you frame the role that AI plays in
Yep.
terms of your development process? Like, what do you, for example, farm off to an agent versus where you think about human in the loop or human oversight steps? Like, is there a framework that you can share that others might learn from?
Sure. What I can say is that there's almost nothing that an AI hasn't touched on in some way, either by creating a plan or doing the actual development or assisting in some capacity. So that's kind of a crazy statement to throw out there. There's no line of code on our platform that hasn't in some way been touched by AI. And I think as far as where I kind of leave the work for us humans is we never lose sight of the strategic architecture of our platform. Like we never let anything go past us that we don't exactly what we want out of it. So if we build a page we don't if our app gets a new feature, there's not a pixel on there that we haven't had an opinion on. And because I bring it back to this notion of evaluating quality. So my most important job at the moment is evaluating quality and making sure that our product turns into what we want our product to be, and not leave that off to the AI, or not take our hands off the steering wheel in that capacity. In terms of what they can build and what we allowed them to build, with our method, I've seen some really, really crazy stuff they've been able to do. And that's just a half a year ago, I would never believe in myself. So I think don't go into it with the mindset of this is what AI can do and this is what it can't do. Go in with it with the mindset of you are the boss, you are in control. You should know every part of your platform. You should know every part of your architecture. Ideally, you should be able to jump in there and start coding yourself. But don't just use the tools that are available as is and try your way with that. Really attack the problem as an engineer. Like, I'm going to do AI assisted development. What are the actual engineering steps I have to go through to make that work the way I want it to work? And how do I evaluate, okay, I did this prompt, but the AI agent did this. How can I alter that? Or what kind of framing can I give it to make it behave the way I want it to behave? And it's super hard work. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of dedication. But really attack it as an engineer that is focused on the problem. I want to build my software with AI agents, but it's still going to be my software, right? It's still my piece of technology. That would be my advice, is sort of don't just download Claude or Code or whatever cursor and start using it as, where they are kind of in control of your journey. Start really attacking it as an engineer and solve the problem before you get going. Solve the problem for you before you get going. Feel comfortable that whatever I want them to perform, I can actually execute. I know how to work with the tools. I know how they think, so to speak.
Yeah.
That will be my key advice, is to.
Yeah. So two follow-ups. One of the things you said as you were initially describing your setup is like, we didn't lose the visual component, or the kind of like
Sure.
the no coding type. Why is that important to you?
It's important for the communication aspect of it all, for sure. But I also think the verification of what's going on, being able to quickly put yourself inside the platform without, reading X amount of lines of code. I think this concept of sort of building with AI and then visually confirming is a super exciting concept, because I do believe people are visual thinkers. And there's this old saying there's this old sentence or saying in English called "I see what you're saying," and I really like that sentence because it speaks to the visual nature of language, right? If you write something down on a board, people are X amount times more able to remember it. And if you start drawing, people are actually more into it, so it's this notion of I see what you're saying or I see what you're doing that I think is very interesting. And also just, I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here. I'm a musician as well.
This is the place.
Yeah. I promise we'll be playing Doom soon. And I'm a musician as well. And I play guitar and a few other instruments. And there's this thing about when you're writing and when you're playing music, you try to put in some surprises here and there. You try to, instead of going with your regular chord-based, strumming or whatever, you try to fill it with a few surprises that people can hook on to. And I think you need that visual component in order for people to get excited about something. It's very hard for me, at least. Probably there are people out there that can be excited about it, but it's for me at least, it's very hard to get excited about something that I don't feel connected to. And I think that visual nature of it creates that connection. So in music as well, it's that uniqueness that creates that connection, or that ability to communicate one musical piece of work over to another human being that creates that connection. So I think about it from that point as well.
Yeah, that's really beautifully said. I need to kind of adopt some of that talk track when talking about Xano. I want to maybe go just again a level up, because again, there's a lot of application development leaders that might be listening to this. Let's say they're given a business problem to solve. Let's say there's a mandate to leverage AI to solve this business problem. They're given a pool of resources. They can hire people. They can invest in tools. There might be a mix of engineers, product managers, designers, etc. How would you recommend that they start thinking about this? Now they've been given this mandate, they've given these resources, they can kind of mix people together. Where do they begin?
So first of all, I would say be comfortable enough with the problem that you're solving to be able to actually communicate it to that team or whatever that you're bringing on board. So feel comfortable enough with it to be able to do that. And then I would say start with the organizational parts of it. So start with how you want to build it, and start small on your project for sure, but use the opportunity in the beginning to really drill down with your team. How do you want to work with this new setup? What are the concrete and actual steps that we want to do? How do we know, how does the left hand know what the right hand is doing? And start, drilling that down and creating that bond in the team. And then, which is, by the way, something that my buddy Anders that you mentioned, he is a lot better at that than me. And I really respect that about him, because, and that part of also why we work so well together. That's he always reminds me that the people aren't computers, so that's that's always a good thing for me to hear. But I would say work with that for a while. Don't sort of be worried about the time being spent on that in the beginning, because when you actually start building your product, that time investment into the apparatus or into the process will be well spent. You will get that investment back 20-fold, 30-fold. And I would say set the level of quality that you expect early, because if you don't set that level of quality, it's way harder to introduce it later on. So be vigilant about that. And people will also respect you a lot for that. So don't be afraid of sort of setting that bar. And I mean, what else can I say? Have some fun with it as well. Try some crazy, go bananas for a little while. It's like, why don't treat everything like it's the NASA space mission or whatever. Like, I try to have some fun along the way.
Yeah.
Build some fun stuff together. Try, get into it, because one of the things I built with AI when I was experimenting was like a mini game that I could play on my own, because it's just what I wanted to do right then and there. And those types of things, they keep you engaged and they keep you energized and they keep you motivated and learn. And if you're coming from a more traditional development world, I would say don't be afraid of acknowledging that you don't know anything. I mean, I've been around in this game of work or this line of work for, I don't know how many years now, 20 years, 25 years. I've been, I have no problem saying that I know less now than I did when I started out. But that's only because my horizon has gotten broader.
Mm-hmm.
So even after all of these years, I know that I'm working within a field where there's more to learn that I will ever be able to learn.
Yeah.
And to me, that is the most exciting thing working with technology, is not being the expert, is constantly being hungry for the next thing, right? So I'm really afraid of the word expert in that sense, because that kind of gives you a right to sit back and relax for a little bit. But why do that when there's all of this cool to learn? So that's yeah.
I love it. I think that's a good place for us to start to wrap up. And I want to ask some more forward-thinking questions. The first is like the definition of a developer. Like,
Yep.
How do you think about what a developer is today and how that will evolve over the next 3 to 5 years?
So I think, with the advent of agentic or AI assisted development, I think any developer right now who's sort of still leaning on the fence that this won't be the future is kind of doing themselves a disservice. I would say that. I think for the next 5 years, you will see a gradual shift, which is happening pretty fast, in my opinion. You will see a gradual shift for more and more actual coding work being done by AI agents, meaning that you need to adapt your skills, because you do have a lot of skills in that space, but you need to know how to reapply them correctly. So where do you if say the best thing about your day-to-day is coding, say that's the best thing, okay, try to harness that energy and put it into spec design, or try to harness that energy and put it into something else that's related to this new world, because your skill sets are definitely way more valuable now than ever before, but the concept is that you need to reapply them. It's not that, whenever I see the headlines sort of AI or developers will be replaced, or AI will take over everything, I think it's I totally get the shock headlines and the clicks that you get from all of that, but to be honest, I think really knowing a subject now is more important than ever. Like, try to be the best in cybersecurity, try to be the best in front-end development, React, Next.js, find like a niche to be the absolute best at, because we definitely, for the future, we're going to need extremely skilled people to handle these beasts. And yeah, but you got to know how to reapply that skill to the new world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Young people that are graduating and trying to figure out what they should do, what would be your guidance to them? They are, maybe studying computer science or some business degree. They're just graduating out of school. Where should they be focusing their attention and trying to get leverage?
I would say, this is going to sound a little bit self-serving as well, but I would say try as hard as you can to stay away from the big companies that are trying to hire developers at this point in time. Try as much, like, of course you have to make your money and you have to sort of survive in the world, but try as much as you can to stay away from that space. That space will eat you alive, I think, in this environment. You will be a cog in the wheel. And in technology, you have all kinds of approaches to technologies. Some of them I like, some of them I don't like. What I particularly don't like are these companies that kind of live on the change requests. They go to companies and they say, we're going to build this. They spec it out in a 50-page document. And then for every time you want to change that document, you have to pay 2,000 whatever per hour to get the change request through. So that's what I mean by sort of the machinery of IT. Try and stay away from that as much as you can. Try to find a place to work where you can explore and where you are allowed to explore, where you are allowed to not only work with the tools that you are given, but also learn how to master those tools. And if that means that you need to start something on your own, I would highly recommend doing that when you're young, and not doing it when you're old like me, because it only becomes harder. I envy the guys that are 20 and just starting out and being able to start a company now. But I think the most important of getting started now is to hone your skills. It doesn't matter, like, really get into a depth of expertise as quickly as possible. And the question I get asked the most is, okay, so where do I start? And I would say start everywhere until you find something that you enjoy. Suddenly you figure out that it's API or integration work. Suddenly you find out that you're excited about front end. Suddenly you find out that you're excited about mobile app development. Try it all. I mean, you're young. You can go at it for 20 hours a day. And I think what I also tell young people starting out is that becoming an expert or becoming a really experienced person with a lot of knowledge is the hardest thing that you're ever going to do, and it's the most rewarding thing you're ever going to do. It's the hardest in the amount of pain, hours that you have to sink into it. We're talking 14-hour days, breathing, living your passion for all foreseeable future. to sort of live that game. And I'm not saying that to scare people. I'm just saying it to sort of, if you decide to go down that path, it's going to be the most rewarding part of your life, work-wise.
You know what's really interesting about what you're saying here? Obviously, it's an advice for young people that are graduating and starting their careers. But I can tell you, as a CEO, that when I make my hiring assessments, I look for that fire in my candidates.
Yeah.
Right? People that are AI native, that are hungry, that are learning, that don't necessarily box themselves into something. Like, yes, they have a passion for something, but they're insatiable in terms of their knowledge and leveling up. Do you find that to be the case as you evaluate candidates for a part today?
Oh, 100%. I mean, passion is almost the be all end all. We can talk about a lot of things, and you can come to me with a long resume of things that you have achieved, but if you don't have that fire in your eye still, if I don't sort of see you reading up on something, watching YouTube, trying things out, like still doing that game, it's just not gonna work out. And I think part of that is also, when you're doing that yourself, you also need that around you to fuel your energy, So I think finding that passion, whatever it may be, just, I know we're getting to the end here, but I mentioned I was a musician before, and that was a part of my life where I almost didn't do anything, coding or development, but I fully dedicated myself. I actually dropped out of school, pursue guitar, and dedicate myself fully to learning the instrument of guitar, and did 14, 15 hours. Nobody was telling me to do 14, 15-hour practice days, and just sort of almost no food, no sleep, just sort of practicing. But the end result of it was that I played in a band. I had a lot of fun. I was really passionate about it, to the extent I could sleep on floors when we were out playing around, and so there's just nothing like finding that fire. So, but you can't find it unless you explore. And if you go to the first things, paying you some money, you're quickly going to be eaten by the machine. So I would try and stay away from the, what does it say? The man, have some try and really find your passion and go for it.
I love that. Well, I think that's a perfect place to end. I think one of the key things that I've taken away from this conversation, amongst many different things, is one of the key jobs of any leader is to evaluate quality. And you can't really do that if you're far away from the work. Nope. And in order to be a part of the work in a way that you truly care and care about its success, you got to be passionate about it. So finding that alignment, not being afraid to get in the trenches with your team, especially in a world that's changing so fast with AI, is absolutely critical. So Aleksander, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts today. Where can people go to learn more about you, about Apart, about what you're doing?
You can first of all, your friend Google, but also we are available at apart.tech. I'm also fairly easy to get a hold of. I'm not the most easy to get a hold of on email, if you ever find my email, because I don't, I don't believe in email as a communication form. So, but I will eventually answer you after a couple of weeks. But get in touch if you want to. I'm fairly easy to get a hold of on other channels. So get in touch if you want to continue the discussion or have any other questions. I'm also awesome. Passionate about that. So yeah.
Yeah. And I've learned so much from you, just kind of, being you're someone I consider a friend and a mentor, someone I just am very impressed with, and just appreciate everything that you bring to the community and just your disposition towards software development. So I'll quote you and end this by saying, keep rocking in the free world, my friend.
Hell yeah, man.